Great. Thank you. Dane Jabzan Dorje Drakpo Tsal Rola Beza Zanje Draba Yo Simje Damje Deva Dan Deve Jada Dembara Jurje Dongara Dan Dongara Jada Dravara Jurje Dongara Mebe Deva Damba Mandravara Jurje Nyere Jada Nyeda Darve Danya Jembo Nebar Jurje Simje Damje Deva Dan Deve Jada Dembara Jurje Dongara Jada Dravara Jurje Dongara Mebe Deva Damba Damandravara Jurje Nyere Jada Nyeda Darve Danya Jembola Nebar Jurje Simje Damje Deva Deve Jada Dembara Jurje Dongada Dongara Jada Dravara Jurje Dongara Mebe Deva Damba Damandravara Jurje Nyere Jada Nyeda Darve Danya Jembola Nebara Jurje Dada Simje Damje Loje Zondovara Simje Labda Zora Julamhando Dozo Lamdrba Zavara Simje Labda Zondrba Yigeza Javara Simje Labda Zora Dada Simje Damje Loje Zondovara Simje Labda Zora Julamda Dovara Simje Labda Zora Lamdrva Zavara Simje Labda Zora Drva Yigeza Javara Simje Labda Zora Dada Simje Damje Loje Zondovara Zora Julamda Dovara Simje Labda Zora Lamdrva Zavara Simje Labda Zora Drva Yigeza Javara Simje Labda Zora Lama Namla Guza Zara Sanji Gunga Lama La Gosong Guba Jimbu Sorande Damanelo Rangon Drubat Senda Drapa Nyambara Zenje Lo Zazong Gudu Zojin Lama Dan Rezo Drudu Jiminu Pije Kandu Junru Diji Rak Marvendo Ji Yala Zorande Rana Rondo Nije Tabjime Yindiri Bejar Gonjam Sende Kota Yinka Na Yetzilab Ranzen Namji Gombang Wanjo Hyo Naso Teni Dadran Naso Chudro Namba Tenje Tanyere Kana Hyo Yoba Tsamala Hyoba Dele Hyo Dan Deta Linda Teni Naso Yang Laran Yiki Nyimbo Nani Hyari Teni Tsamake Namkada Nyambe Simji Tamji Tenji Dewa Lana Bayanda Wazobu Sanje Gomba Rinpoche Tobarsa Te Chida Dagatari Tambi Chusamukangi Tsargyanda Sin Nyamso Lama Jo Nyambe Kanong Sancham Chodo Toki Ne Teni Simbarhyos.
Good morning, all my Dharma friends, those near and those listening from afar. We are going to continue, starting this morning, with the stages of the path, the essence of wisdom. And in listening to this, as always, please generate bodhicitta as your motivation by thinking that all beings throughout space must achieve perfect Buddhahood, and that it is in order to bring that about that you will listen to the teachings. Nipala ni kunzom de bogdonge nanle chi nang song song ge nanle chi bogdonge nanle dorten dan jishi dorten kasong rotsa ne de jishi re
de jishi tobtile meti
de
la sa o de ta nga zo di bondong da lamcher se ya de chu nyamne se de la par de tmo mai ba de ba chimbo da lam sang ha nyamne se le kap sa bondong da lamcher se ya de be ke chimbo le de ga re se na nga zo tu jang de me ba chu lam nga zo tu jang de ro do nyar chu lam na ba ga re se na so an di ge na de nga zo la ka za gu dok di de dog chona da jani da di le ga de cha cha lem de ko Di kapsu Kandrikine, Lam the Cherkova, Keja Hiekoda, Tandape, Kitchenbo, Yenje Menik, Kuchen Tola, Gomjan do Gomari, to Jondo, Rodoga Caps, so Gomchin Tero, so Gomchin, Seriate, Tambo, Tahianet and Lambton, Tesare, quiet and all Gongomse. Ngone Sagja Chimbo, Zoba Chimbo, Nyamni, Ngone sinking Yazar Zondu, ko Mamanga truth, Rondog, Yunamga Captain, Tendrichek Tony, then it's our young Yota, Lam the Cherjata, Boy Yongyake, Takap did you gone the Yardel, Chokgyur and Holiday, they do Namia Genie called Marie Timbak Center. So what are they told here?
So it's been a while, so to remind you where we are. The structure of the path here is divided into the planting of seeds, the nurturing of those seeds through the practices of the 4 empowerments, the protection or removement of hindrances to the growth of those seeds or shoots. And the 4th part is where which we've just started, is how to progress. And then the final part will be the fruition. Now, when we talk about progress, we're actually talking about how to bring whatever you're practicing in your meditation into your daily life. And that's why progress is treated here as a separate topic or subject. Of course, we progress in meditation practice by doing it. The problem is we also need to have a way to bring that meditation practice into our daily lives, because it is amidst our daily lives that we principally encounter stimuli that cause us to give rise to attachment and aversion. It may be possible for us to maintain some equanimity, some degree of tranquility and insight while sitting on a meditation cushion. But it is not by that alone that a meditator can be appraised. A practitioner of Mahamudra or Dzogchen must also actively seek post-meditation practice. In other words, how to actually bring the wisdom of meditation into their daily lives, including amidst all the many disturbances and stimuli that we encounter in our daily lives.
Tambo de la ni ngu da ju timba tin so lo so la so ko che ren tambo ne sikanza ne o ya ya ta de ni se kyan de tambo konza ne za wa na ni kon ri za ne kanja konjang konza ma da yomar sam ji ja gumi he ji za to gom song ta Re, Tori, Nanmachahi, yes, on be Zangi Parme dupe, Nawa. Oh, yeah, Tanda made the maker come down. It's really poor. Zangi Parme dupe, Nawa, Gunja, Soda, Sword, Nimbo Mebe, Guns of the Kitchi. Lo yen jero mata pata na ya dimbar madra pe joma ton sombar samte tingjele joma sepa ta ge zoltor te ta ta lambo hingda na so se tela chibyin na wa kayami chuna thamji devyin khibar chi khi sombe te na dambe chu nyamsa limba ma to yin chi ja tse sama ta ho ndarya 다딱 른달 핀바 빠자메 베틴 고바미 냠데 챤난 탐지 구미전 dom바셈베 켑지 자다 사오소 다데레 다데 가레스 데나네 사보 히오데레 당가조 추오네 추바 츠딘 넘버 타발다 다케자 히코레 당가서 추 양다레 네 추코나라 마도 yin nimbo jiamdo sambe dendruke nyamni sink madela geja ki kole yang korana don don sange sanga bagando so mambor ye da ja chenbor hi yando samne dendruke yang chula lokta to kon dendruke yongsa mari samne dendruke si ni ko mari tanga zo gen di 같이 곰톰나 곰마 톰나 다리 글루틴 근단라 왕아 영마 톰나 제와 사마닝아 담베 취 라마 장보른 티 ndrke yong top kyozo monam di chin tamarida tama da witogle ka monam ja ya nga zo chuba ke monam ja ya de witogle ka monam ja gorida da de tap kyo gle ka ngone we na nga ta ta ludin zo ndr top kokam dala ta kokam dala jangi parma sumga ke dal chago dango ya mando ni la chago ya mando drag pin ta sa ole ni ke nu chi sa ole parma la zone yogi je mando de so la nang mi se ya mando de so la sam no tong dong de ni parma sumga la sam no tong dong na wa de lam de chen kun zu chu tham jin de so la se sama de pa hyo da da ke de la dan de ke pin ta sa ri za wa ni nga ran mando san wo ma ri nga zo 당가서 가르세나 장보 로장나 단데 로병 서야데 특바 첨보 크럭 말이 특바 청원이 특바 첨보 상한이 로병 장장리 상한디 제람도 조람 람람바섬 냠네데 람 상하 그 다당가 저게 디게 오 로병리 데인데다 가서 때는 게 님보 촌이 요 말이 오네 요 말이 lam jang na keji samno tong na keji zhol nimbo yo mari da dala nimbo yo mari chama ning je se yor chama chunang dembar ma daba rindo samne ke te tham je malam da juma na ye da tendri ke samno tong da na lam cher sin ne ta nga zo zho ya bo re ke nima kha che re chol ya bo re ji me je ya bo re thi la nye che ke ja hi ni re we na khon jor cha re ko ta ba yo mari dra ya te re nye che ke ja zang bo re hi na cho ta da dra ri chora 도령 희삼 기드나 니마카케 깨작카 이삼보 기드나 도는 정도들 야 대한나게 발마터 솔라 나메데 먼저 다니 발마 성컬 대라 뒤전도메 밖에 닝보 메와게 토니 삼노 동동나 되니 야제야 본도리 야나 대거 닝보 메와전 요거 고들이 든리케 말이 든리케를 닝보 메와 컨셉 춘다 담지 데미도 또 온두 동담게 뎀바게 내로게 따왕간도 저런도 concept 동담니까 데 일미든 진저도 삼닝게다 동닝이 일미든 진저도 따와 양다바 줄을 띠값을 째로 걸을 띠값을 띠 값래 메바 차로 든루 현에 광고야 돼 답에 개 첨보리 son다 든루 송
The topic of progress or enhancement here is presented in 3 sections, which are outer, inner, and secret. And the outer enhancement, principally, or progress, refers to how we interact in post-meditation with the outer or external world. In other words, with what we experience, both beings and apparent inanimate appearances. So how we interact with appearances. This in turn is presented in 2 sections, a brief statement and a full explanation. Last time, whenever that was, we ended with the brief statement. So now we begin with the full explanation. And the full explanation here of how a practitioner should interact with external appearances in post-meditation is divided into 2 topics. Using relative truth and bringing them to the path in consideration of absolute truth. The first of these, making use of relative truth, is again divided into two presentations. The main point, what you're doing in using relative truth to interact with appearances, and then how to join this understanding of the relative truth of appearances to your actual mind, how to actually apply it to your being. So we start with the first of these. In the root text, Guru Rinpoche says, all of them, all external appearances, are relative. They are impermanent. Think that they are relative, impermanent, and like magical illusions. Strongly give rise to the understanding or attitude that you don't need any of them. So that is Guru Rinpoche's statement in the root text of the point of using relative truth. Now the commentary says, all of the things we experience, everything that appears to us, whether we classify it as good, in other words, an object of attachment, as bad, in other words, an object of aversion, or as in between, in other words, apparently irrelevant and therefore an object of apathy. All of these appearances are really not independent things. Each of them is a gathering or an assembly of lots of smaller things. Therefore, each of them is actually fake. Even in relative truth, everything that we identify as an appearance, such and such thing, such and such person appears to me, is nothing like what we identify it to be. And for one thing, in identifying something as something, or someone as someone, we are assuming that that thing is one thing. We are assuming that that person is one person. But nothing is actually like that. No thing is an indivisible unit. Everything that we think of as a thing is in fact a collection, a gathering, an assembly of lots of different things. And when we take the attitude towards something, this is this, we are reducing it in our minds to our momentary concept of that thing as, first of all, unitary, which it is not, couldn't be, and never has been. And secondly, we're assuming that it actually possesses our affect-based, opinionated labeling of it as such and such. This is also true when it comes to persons. No person is just one thing. Every time we think of so-and-so, we think so-and-so is like this. But that's not true. That's not true of any of us. That any time you say so-and-so is this, it is at the very best, and even that is improbable, a partial statement. Therefore, when it's said that none of these things have any meaning, it doesn't mean that people don't matter. It doesn't mean that external circumstances are irrelevant. It means that the labels we impute to them in the absence of meditative awareness or wisdom applied in post-meditation, the labels we impute to them are inaccurate. They are misleading. We constantly mislead ourselves, and that impedes our progress. Therefore, all of these things are relative, but the word relative in English is not strong enough for kunzo. Kunzo means totally fake. Everything that we think of as a thing is totally fake. Not the thing, but our thought of it as a thing. Furthermore, even if it were the case, which it is not and could not be, that they were what we think they are, they're not going to be that in the next moment. There's no such thing as stasis. No inanimate object, and certainly no person, passes through time without changing. We are all constantly changing, and all the inanimate objects we look at are constantly changing. When we look at something and from moment to moment it seems to remain the same, that's simply our lack of ability to observe subtle changes. But eventually those subtle changes conglomerate into a coarse or gross change that even our foolish minds and imperfect senses can detect. And then we're surprised. But we shouldn't be surprised because the change wasn't sudden. It was gradual and it was going on all the time. So therefore, every moment, every instant, every unit of time, no matter how small we can measure it, things are changing. So therefore, because things are not true units, and because in addition to that they're constantly changing, because they're not true units, they're meaningless, they're essenceless. They don't have the essence that we impute to them. They don't have the meaning that we assign to them. And because they're constantly changing, they're impermanent. Therefore, they are not real as they appear to us. Now don't forget that as a thing appears to you includes all of your thoughts and perceptions and so on about it. Nothing is the way we think it is. And therefore, all things are really just like a magical illusion. How are they like a magical illusion? When a skilled illusionist performs their trick, they can cause thousands or millions of people to see a big building disappear or see something else. You really see that. That's as valid a seeing as if it had happened, right? But it didn't happen. Well, that's the way everything is. Things aren't what we see. Sounds aren't what we hear. Words don't mean what we think they do. And they vanish. About this, the Buddha said in the Samadhi-raja Sutra, illusionists can emanate or cause people to see all kinds of forms. Horses, elephants, chariots, all kinds of things. But none of those things, even though they really do appear to the audience, exist. Understand all things to be just like that. Now, a very real consequence of this is that if things are not the units we take them to be, if things are not lasting, they're impermanent, and if they're in fact illusory, then everything other than what we do is pointless. All that matters is what we do. Therefore, since the best thing you can do is practice Dharma, anything other than practicing Dharma is completely meaningless and pointless. Now, you might be prepared to admit, well, I understand that anything I do other than practicing Dharma or engaging in other virtuous actions is of no use, will be of no use in my future lives, but what about now? Never mind, Jamgon Lodro Thaye writes, never mind future lives. Everything you do other than Dharma is of no use right now. You think that investing in error, investing in misapprehension, investing in the projection of reality on that which has no reality is going to make you happy even now? You think that has any value? How can the entertainment of an error, a fundamental error about, and we're talking about relative truth here, right? Even the relative nature of phenomena, the relative nature of appearances, how can being wrong be of any help, even now? So therefore, think, I don't need any of this. I don't need any of this projection. I don't need to believe a lie. I don't need to pretend that this illusionist's illusion is real. And so, cultivate a strong attitude toward everything that appears to you. I don't need any of this. Because the fixation on the falsely imputed reality of things is the cognitive pole of the affect of craving. We believe that these illusions are real because we want to believe it. We think it's going to give us stability, but it's not. Believing that ice is rock is not going to help you. It's going to put you in grave danger, and we've proven this to ourselves constantly, even in these lives. So, basically, Lama said, the point of this is not to be able to philosophize. The point of this is to have a valid working basis for living your life under the understanding samsara does not work. It is never going to work. And the importance of that, and the reason why that's repeated at so many different levels of the path, is because we're always trying to find exceptions. We're always trying to find loopholes. We're always trying to tell ourselves, yeah, but maybe this would work. Maybe, yeah, but this is a special case. There is no special case. Samsara doesn't work. It's a lie. Believing in a lie never turns out well. It doesn't. Now, obviously, Lama said this presupposes that the person being discussed here really wants to practice Dharma, that they're willing to at least entertain the idea that maybe samsara is pointless and worthless. If you're complacent, if you think, yeah, I'll do a little bit of Dharma, but basically I really want to get on with my life. I'll do this in my spare time, it's okay, it's nice. If that's your attitude, then this is not going to help you. Because you're not open to the starting point of the path, and you're certainly not open to this message. And then another thing we often tell ourselves is, oh, I'm so limited in this life. My abilities are poor. I'm old. My circumstances are not ideal. Basically, we have different ways of saying the time isn't right. My circumstances are not ideal. I can't really practice now. I still have to invest samsara. I still need samsaric comforts and so on. But I will aspire to future lives, because don't the lamas always talk about the power of aspiration and how good aspiration is? You know, and that it's, if you make aspirations for future lives, and that's very good, and then I can feel good about myself because I'm making aspirations. I don't have to actually practice in this life because it's too hard for me. Lama said, sure, yeah, lamas say that. But lamas say that as a last resort. Aspiration is the last resort. It's the resort of the powerless. If you can't do anything else, then pray to be able to do it in a future life. And that's better than nothing. So yeah, aspiration is better than nothing. If that's what you want to do in your Dharma practice, just better than nothing, then stick with aspirations. The point here is we have to train our minds constantly, not just in meditation, but in post-meditation, because we're going up against a very powerful momentum of habit that we have accumulated throughout beginningless time. Now, we may, when we hear the term mind training or attitude training, we often think, well, that's a Mahayana thing, and here we're studying Vajrayana. It's not limited to the Mahayana, Lama said. He said, actually, all Buddhism involves mind training, attitude training, whether it's the common vehicle, the Mahayana, as is well known, or the Vajrayana. And all of the practices that we do, including the generation and completion stages of Vajrayana, are types of mind training. And what we need to begin with in working with external appearances in post-meditation is to remind ourselves constantly in post-meditation that things have no essence, and that therefore there is no point in any aspect or any instance of samsara. There's simply no point. There's no meaning in it. For example, we spend a lot of our time talking. And sometimes we talk to ourselves, but most of the time, hopefully, we are talking to other people. And after a conversation, we tend to replay it. We think, well, I said this, and they said that, and I thought, what did they mean by this, and what did they mean by that? Which ignores the most fundamental and obvious truth of conversation, which is it's impermanent. Whether conversing with someone has pleased you or wounded you, it only does so because you carry it with you. It's not, you don't want to carry things like that on the path. Obsession with temporary words. Because when you carry the past around like that, you are trying to freeze time. Even if your perception of things at a certain moment was accurate, which is doubtful, they've certainly changed since then. Your friend today may be your enemy tomorrow. Your enemy today may be your friend tomorrow. So we have to understand that what we say and what other people say to us, and therefore our designation of so-and-so as my friend and so-and-so as my enemy, none of this means anything. They don't mean anything. Now, be careful here, Lama said. When I say they don't mean anything, I don't mean you should abandon others. What doesn't mean anything is your perception of them. You're labeling so-and-so as your friend or so-and-so as your enemy is meaningless. Even at the time, it may be based on error or incomplete knowledge, and certainly it can change over time. So, in short, it is by understanding the actual relative truth, the utter fakeness of all things, that we can move toward the authentic view in post-meditation.
Oh, that is oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Nipa de la, Nipa ne, Xiao da de, Nipa, the Juni, Timba Nipa de, they don't ne, John the Tin, Song Doa, that then Guru Rinpoche Kare Song Yoris, and they don't kin la, Tony ni, Jazon, Kanzong, Choki, Yi de, John the Tin, Song, that did say ni de, the Lord Young Zo de, I saw it to John the Mapa Gongoya, Zo da de, they yabo, his on 샘나 깡알다 나차다 동할세야 돼 자완이는 용통가 말이 되리 로병나니 제발도 봐봐 제발 르다 샘라 대독 초라뇽 선한게 지 차라 강라 디지선라네 로문용와르시 나초 효키야 데 나초 프로블럼 효키야 되리도 나초 그 조본달라 데사르 샘다 조고 르제 대독 대와도 동할 쫑 잠디 롤 뇽 남양 델판 잘 모완 대판 돌 모완 다디 대동이디 로드뇽네 나랑랑 총칸의 교도 거 나랑랑 그 동할 뇽도 거 뭐인가 동할 때가 말이다 가서 단나는 뭐인가 동할은 알아 띵가 도산 대도그 손나 뭐인이 손 용거도산 대말이 초랑랑 그랑도 텐르시인도 거 디지스 만장네 로문용어스 디 로마뇽 강송의 띵오월로 파 생가데 쪼히게 긴 데나 대방오 동나 동 딩오 대와르샤나 샤나 대저 개와다 제반 타예별 베르데 심진의 동시 대 파심지의 동교 저나 대오 지보 가보 같이 성구나 대 로드뇽 되는 도마도네 딘라고 대와다 탐지 대 심지 탐지의 파베 심지 탐지의 유런들로 용토비 교사님 대와 델라티네 개와 남다 유를 제 터바레 조고리 디 대와데 롤라 캬는 도무도네 동아당 동할 손에 대저 득바다 제바 심지 거나 드네 란라 림바 로병 사모니도 나만다 땅링게 메방아서 득바진보 로병나네 땅링이 보 페마사스야데 다 동단데 제과리 동할 같이 손나 도거다는 거 말이 nga donghar ti so nga kho ge donghar ti so nga mo ge donghar ti so nga yong ge donghar ti so second ro nga ngarang donghar ti nyong ne sem na pe achok ja ne na cha ja do mo do ne ya sa nga dari karwa zangbori sam donghar de jin de karwa zangbori sa den deva cho so nga deva nam kha cha bar ge song do wa phin de nam kha cha bar ge den na ge karwa zangbon da lama ga ka den ri kun cho ga ka den ri sa nga donghar song ya de song de deba da je ba simji tham ji 심지 남카다 냠베 심지 탐지 근 던라고 망보도 뇽도 거 나랑 끼보 말이 쳇바르데 냐르 동화 조도 강아서 그 주탐지 메레다 냐르 동화 주탐지 메레 깨자 희건 힘 후바던 저리 동화 뇽고 다 된데 뇽나 가레세지 나서도 동화도 강뇽고 말이다 막 나서 동화 사보 뇽도 거 상강아다 도도위는 거 나서도 동화 자와니 뇽고 말이 나서 삼노 동나게 동화 뇽고 말이 뭐만보다 대려 동할 치서워리 가서 그 렉만 톡고 통통고 막 가서 그 심지 탐지 저 카게 약본 무히허를 마도 저게 심지 그 대도된 가서 그 오네 땅리 위는 검는 용톡고만 나와 Mark Yarani, Yadani, Yazi, Tondroni, Regan, the Yamsino. Young Tondrola, and Koran, Kibori, some call it, Kibo Marida. Tana money and tragic tones and don't kill my dead, don't rock what the country call it. Tana Charpa Pam and Kambayaling gave Kioma, Tundriki Mamboro, don't hurt the Jota Simkim Tekin Dune, Rang Cholin. Oh, Wong Jungle the Tin and Dra, same with some no Tana and Dra, so lean the Tanga Karazambo, Kokabri left home, some little thing gory mato jagger. Don't hara, Senor the Naja ring, you ring the message Tankandoa, the Tango Marilaki. Nanga Zamazogori, but Muggy Zamazo Tokomari, Sanjak and Robert Donga Saga Maserson already. Oh, Nagazama, Nagazo Gondo, Santana, Kokabri lives on San Kokab tail on it. It's a gum jokola. Jaja Jag Tansang Yo Chori. Don't hurry the Dewat Jorga Chori. Then doing the round the limb, but Lord John some need Zonla Lam the tongues on Terry. Segu Neman so Chokgyur Jorwa Jorna. Segu Neman Garel Chokgyur Jorna call it. Jopam Jori Tata Song, he kept trying to hear Gomanga, so Tamji, Hako, Lapard and did Lomba Yarje or Satamjila, Tenda, don't her part me, but I know the deal. Tangazo, don't her chia terrata. Japtar Sevu Tang, Tano Yang Yang the Ghost, Sevu the Kamba Sepa, sauce on Tina Sogonan, Terry, Ramzonbala, Ramzonla, Sanji Jisa now, Hemba Mina, Chi the Pang Muguken, Mamjona, Sadar. Troop good answer. That so the Namjar Tamjita, Hanju Ramzon Batami, Hanju Ramzon Batamjika, Julam Terry, the Sadarku, Sanjig Chu, the Sadarku Jambo, the sort Samjali, lot of Magatin, some lot of Korean Nazal, Tata Levits on the Pe Ningyo Kuchin and so going to Zugate. Whenever the Tundumarida, Rendam and the Sadark took a red Napcoli, to be Lun so Samji, Chupa Namdina. Kangba Tebak Dongmayan do Sari, Togo to mine Sama Sasa, Chupake Chajin Sangsarida. Chupa Namda in the Zonio, that in Korabala to Mambo here made it, he na de Nawalan Rodi Tsemari, Natsonda, Nanda, Not Chupa ends on Tachem the Chemeba of the Soins on the Keta Hikorava, the any marka on the Keta Hinke, Dundra, Lama Natsonda. One Chupan, Naso, some Yanni, Yan the Tone, the Naranga Tap Jong, Kamba Zipo, Kamba Chimbo, Jagamanda, Nikamandan, some not Tankanoa. This son of Tango Maring was on one, some not Tangan, when you done so what you down and Nanda and so you Kamba Tapcha, Gikon you make and Kamba on the dinner, low mambo and Swatine, Semna, Tata Trona Chesori. Tatan Kamba Yapon dinner, Trona left Tomado. Segu Yapon does like a Trona left Tomado. Kuchin Mother thing in the Tronhan let him. To cook Kamba long here, Jakawa Nana, Nansub, some bombed. Taron Tronhan's a hot labor, the Japoba, can tell you that the rain that draws a woman, San Chat and Tony Pichibo doing the Gomya with Dully. That did to shoot the last one, some Gorkan Aranga, Yijo, to shoot the candle last one, some. Then over in a Jokatsu and a Ngomjo Jo Mari, there to enforce. Kaze Ningom, Tom Kando, Sonia Choki dance, Choki. Not so Chama, Choki Mevala dinner. Chupa Namda and Choki go to Choki Mevala dinner, Chupa Namda Charovokoma. Chupa Namda Charovokoma. Tana, Yamareni, Chukon Drogon, and Kamba Yabo, the Chaki and Ronkan Yabo, Chaki Mina, Nita Gomari. The Kayo Mari and Dombanda in the Yargen Roches or both in Yardi. Not so. Lomba the tender Chakin Yomari, the Senate board in Hanju, Tata Tendrumando, Tanga right sarson, not Alo Soin, Tendrumando, Pitch, Yarje Chembori, Chakin Chembori, Donhar Chembori, Donhar Kona, here Yarje Kona, here Jimdor Kona, Saya, Mato Jag, Sem the Tonanda with the Meva Chasando. Then the tender Chandro, Yarje Sonake, tender Chandro, Hite, Chokitan, Jin Zangi. La Gadok, Jin Zambor song, Nimbar zone, Lamsa, Trolang Chocho, Lamsa, Gachojo, Chorala Hag, Hallo, message Yagaton, Lamsa, Gachocho, message Jake Dwar Lam, Lamsa, Dokcho, Rindokodo. That the song has a pay Chupala Jord, Dick up so Lam Chervigo, Dick up so Dedo, the Nika, the Chipa Yambala Pa, Keja Yabor Kona, Semtro Singi, Conjurado, Keja Nimbar Kona, Semtro Singi. Jing German song, Jing Toba, Tendugori, 다 찡그 저성 뛰는 가서 탑조 원더를 차러와 감보바게 송으로와 가서 간르는 처리요 바데 라마다 깨자망보 히어를 라마망보건 감보바게 타마리 히바 랑총 맞는 가서 처원 참수 송으로와 색대리다 타마리 히바 코나게 총 맞은 나가 총 맞는 랑총 맞는 가서 동하는 용도 그도와 대리 뭐 임바르게 저란에 저래 왜 야보 제나 쪼랑랑 된제모닝가 쪼랑 깨지리데 동하 책농보 람나 독촉초 다 대니 랑총 맞는 찡그 저 촉초데 랑총 맞는 다 뒤찡그 저마 송네를 람처탑고 거들이 초랑 야보시나 가규지 참해와 초랑 도보시나 도기 참해와 니가 그놈의 들이네 베 니가 가래 송나 센도 쪼랑이 지승이 스적이 저주도만 보나 타마르 키바가 랑총 선사리 내로가 따와 똥걸 다 되대 대 마성나 대 랑총 생마성 가서 대 고홀이 진상이 가도 진책성 니그 토퍼셀 제리 만나 더버 코르본치데 르셈나르드네베 고갑면용시 다 되니 르셈나르드네베 고갑 자와니네 오마레 루보 윈돌리르가 고갑 초란 둔남이 오마 대 인게 세고 말이다 나랑 세고 걸 삼노도나 나조가 뭐 인나 판저고 저고 걸데 뭐 인게 오네 세고 마 초랑속 승보로나 인게 장보 님바 가리세나 초랑게 셈나 톤한데 초랑게 때터 걸 대인도 랑그랑나 다니 다근 고인 세야데 대리 다니 다그 다yen 세야데 나가라 몰로 나가 저고 걸어 대도기 진게 저 트인데 파티 서티 아티 마티 대니 나랑 짜와 니니 총무전 다 대근 저거 말이 추바 오네 양데 뒤돌 삼도 동고 동네 다다데 삼도 흉치한도 동다 다후 나랑 그 초선배 총的 zone 다후데 가래 카워리 더서라 추바 남다시고 등르고리 진상이 가도 진제서 니그 도버서 만데버 코르본체 르셈나르다나 고가 먼저 제달 소야 먹가와 메베 이데 코나 데르테네 송도 양고게 제달 소야 메데와 먹가와 가지 도죠 가야 메바 이데 코나 존다 팀버 사오 이데 마케 존다 팀송 로존 동동마 송데 양고 다 디체데 돼서 지바리 다 든두케 삼노 동도라 초랑가 머체데 초랑가 데지 라차리 데타마도는 머체게 데지 라투가 마리다 치차비 뇽미 히데 동도다고 마 나저 뇽미 히데 상하가 동 치차와 히거 라바 마리 치차와 뇽미 히 데고 타마리 히바데 랑소 선데 데르조 데데 또토마 다다 된다 랑소 선도 데동 거래 디치도 그바 데치도 나서 로튼도 존는 냐니 거래 상 다데
다데 샤네 저게 계속 조슈를 파유기 미데 나서라고 자야 뭐마게
자그리 탑히 오마에 나가서 야제 땅거라 켜kim보야 돼 야제 땅서 마 차리다
뭐마 캠보아 추기 난타나나 콘소
리
섬지메 잡에 동안 녀마라 테네 모트 라보라도
요 베 ngotu lesawo phokre tikapsa
데코스 당가서라고 차나 테네
lesawo 타보니도 가르신 데 제어려 나저 뽐보 카히게 제어리
그래
밤절 야제지 지보 가보 제효의 추랑 얘기 민들이 송여 제 어리 가죠 대리 차는 거 단로 할 때다다
So the second part of using relative truth to progress in post-meditation amongst in your encounter with appearances. The second part is how to get this into you. The first part was the point, right? I mean, what you're trying to do. But it doesn't actually tell you how, other than reminding yourself, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter. So there is an actual how, and this is the how. And it's one you've heard before. The root text, in the root text, Guru Rinpoche says, grasp the point of this by practicing taking and sending with regard, using pleasure and suffering as well as conditions that seem to cause those. And always maintain a happy mind through being content with whatever happens, which also implies whatever you get. So that is, according to Guru Rinpoche, how to do this. The reason why we need a how-to in order to actually implement in post-meditation the understanding of the pointlessness or essencelessness of appearances, samsaric appearances, is, as was stated earlier, that we're trying to counteract very powerful deep-seated habits. And it's hard to do that with ideas. The idea, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, this isn't what I think it is, and so on, it may not be powerful enough. So there is a technique here. And the technique is to focus on the worst or worst problems first. We're not taking the approach of, well, I'll deal with the little weak kleshas, and once I can withstand those, then I'll start to worry about the big ones. We take the opposite approach in Guru Rinpoche's instructions here. And what is our worst problem in post-meditation? It's that we are so self-obsessed. The more extreme an experience of physical or mental pleasure, or even worse, physical or mental pain, displeasure, suffering, the more self-focused, self-absorbed we become. And especially when we experience anything intense, intensely pleasant or pleasurable, physically or mentally, or intensely painful, physically or mentally, we do two things. The first thing is we become self-absorbed. So if we like it, if it's pleasant, we think, I'm experiencing this. I must be wonderful. I must deserve this. And the second thing, and if it's unpleasant, we think, why me? Why me? Me. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? Why do I have a headache like this? Why am I so sad all the time? So the first thing is that the very intensity of our experience causes us to become even more self-absorbed, or at least it heightens our self-absorption. The second thing is, somewhat ironically, that we assign blame. So if we feel good, we think, I feel good because of this external thing. And if we feel bad, we think, I feel bad because of this. It is this person's fault that I feel bad. It is because of this person that I feel good. I feel good because of such and such in the external world. I feel bad because of such and such. If the news weren't so bad, I wouldn't get this depressed. In short, we, again, ironically, become self-obsessed and play the blame game. Those are our two errors, according to Guru Rinpoche here. So, the technique is, first of all, stop. Just stop. It's okay if those thoughts arise, but don't follow them. Don't invest in the taste of that. Don't savor, Jamgon Lodro Thaye writes, don't savor the taste of self-absorption. Don't wallow in it. Don't stew in it. Don't brood about it. Because that's what we do. Well, I have to brood because my headache's so bad. Or if I didn't suffer from this level of depression, I wouldn't be like this, but you don't know what it's like. So we have to give that up. We have to. There's just no other option. Because by this point we know it doesn't work. So what is the alternative? The suggested alternative here is when you feel good, whether it's a happy thought, you feel physically buoyant and healthy, something pleases you, something goes well. First of all, recognize that it's not a gift from the universe. And it's not an accident. It's got a cause. And that cause is having done good things. So the first thing is that if you feel good at this moment, it's because at some point you did something right. The second thing is, take all of that good feeling and all of that having done something good and give it away. Give it to all other beings. If you can imagine doing so, multiply it endlessly so that each and every being gets a complete set of all of your good feelings, physical and mental, and all of the whatever it was you did right, that each and every being gets that. So that's the giving part. And then when suffering happens, physical sickness, physical pain, adverse circumstances, a bad mood, unpleasant interaction, whatever it is, recognize that just as good feelings are not a gift, this is not a punishment. The answer to the question, why me, is because you did something in the past, something wrong. If you feel bad, The reason is because at some point in the past, you did something wrong. And instead of becoming obsessed with why me, and obsessed with the pain and the misery, and dwelling in that, draw into that the suffering and the wrongdoing of all beings. Imagine how many beings there are at that exact moment that are feeling exactly what you're feeling. And in fact, if you think about it, given that we are human beings and not living in a hell, probably there are a huge number of beings that are experiencing much, much worse. Possibly more worse than you can imagine. That doesn't sound like good grammar. Take all of their suffering and draw it into yourself. Don't think, when can I get rid of this pain? Think, I'm fine with this pain as long as nobody else ever has to experience this pain or anything worse. I'm fine with this sickness as long as nobody else has to ever experience it. In other words, stop thinking about yourself. You're not the only person who feels bad. A lot of people feel bad. Most people probably feel worse. So that's the taking part. Now, Lama said you can practice this as it's taught in the Mahayana mind training, where it says practice taking and sending in alternation, in which case you coordinate the giving part or with the out-breath and the taking part with the in-breath. But he said you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to that. You can also simply have the attitude, for example, when you are overcome or overwhelmed by a sensation, physical or mental, that is pleasant or unpleasant, apply the aspect, whether it's giving or taking, that is appropriate. You don't necessarily have to practice them together. Apply them, especially because this is post-meditation instruction, so apply them as needed and as appropriate. So if you're miserable, you're going to have more power in the thought, may nobody else ever have to experience this. I wish I could take all of their pain into me right now. Than the thought, I give them my happiness, because you can't even remember what it was like to be happy. So, another aspect to this, giving up of self-obsession and really selfishness is what's being addressed here, is that we are very, very finicky and choosy and picky. And Lama said that it's particularly true in this country, but nowadays it's becoming true in other countries, and we'll get back to that. So we have to cultivate contentment. The richest person in the world is the person with the most contentment, because they experience no poverty. They experience no deprivation. Because if you are content, you have everything you want. Now, we have a choice here. We can be constantly discontent because our minds are infinite, so we can imagine all kinds of things we don't have that we want. We can imagine better food than we get to eat, finer clothing than we get to wear, a nicer house than we get to live in, finer furnishings, including our beds and meditation cushions and whatnot. We can imagine all of that. The point, however, is not that you need to become a sour-faced saint who turns away things that you just happen to have. That's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha very clearly refuted the virtue of false or unnecessary deprivation. For example, Buddhist monastics, monks and nuns, if they happen to be given the finest fabric for their robes, the finest food, the nicest place to live in, and so on, they are not supposed to turn them down. And there is no violation of their vocation by living in a nice place, having robes made with good quality fabric, and eating good food. So the Buddha's instruction is, as long as you don't crave it or try to acquire it. And that's the problem. We get used to something and then we try to make sure we have it. But as long as we don't do that, the enjoyment of prosperity is not the problem. But by the same token, a monastic should be content with robes that are sewn together from patches made from the cast-offs in a dust heap. Lama commented, actually nowadays, if you look at the formal monastic robes, where the skirt is made of pieces, and the inner and outer upper robes are made of very specifically numbered pieces, and so on. Nowadays, they look very nice, the way they're sewn. But the point of them is not to look nice or look not nice either. The point is that because they're made of pieces, they're not like a huge bolt of fine fabric. And originally, they were sewn from whatever you could get. So you have to, by the same token as you need not refuse a good standard of living, you should be content as a practitioner with cast-off clothing and just enough food to survive. The point in either case is contentment. Because it is not the quality of our stuff that imprisons us. We are not imprisoned by our wealth, nor are we imprisoned by lacking wealth. We're imprisoned by wanting more and more. Because as long as we continue to want more, it's impossible for us to enjoy what we have, because we think of it as not enough. Once I want better food than I have, I can't enjoy the food I have because I've decided it's bad. It's not. It's insufficient. If you practice these two things, taking and sending of pleasure and pain, and contentment with whatever arises, then you will become independent, really independent. Independent of circumstances. Good circumstances won't carry you off, and adverse circumstances won't make you miserable. And on the other hand, if we think, if I have one, I need two, if I have two, I need three, and so on, if we lack contentment, then we become the slaves of our own discontent. We become the slaves. We have sold ourselves in slavery to our own lack of contentment, our own desire. And as long as we do that, as long as we continue to lack contentment, it is completely impossible for our bodies and minds to come to rest in the meditative sense, to come to a state of natural rest. It's just impossible. Don't even think about it. Don't think, yeah, but I'm a little bit different. I could bring in this, and what. No, it's impossible. So we need to learn to be happy regardless of circumstances. Now, Lama commented, he said, I said that we're more picky, we're more finicky here, but actually I was just back home and back in Eastern Tibet, and it's the same there now. Because of improvements in the standard of living, the spread of technological conveniences, what we call technological progress, that's all people think about. What they have, how to get more. And I can see, by interacting with people there, that they're more miserable. They're becoming like, and they're more impatient. You'd think that this speed of technology and so on would make you more patient, but it doesn't. It makes you more impatient. And the problem is not the technology. The problem is the way our minds work. It's that our acquisitiveness gets lit up, lit on fire by these improvements. And then we want more and more and more. Lord Gampopa phrased this, and this really goes to what Jamgon Lodro Thaye said about neither our bodies nor minds will come to rest. Lord Gampopa phrased this as saying, our problem is that our ordinary awareness lacks independence. Now, this is a very powerful statement because we normally think about highfalutin meditation concepts like Tamelji Shepa, ordinary mind, ordinary awareness, on the one hand, and then our problems with contentment and misery and, on the other. But it's actually the same thing. The problem is that whether or not we have encountered or recognized ordinary mind, we have not allowed it to take its seat. We have not allowed it to take its rightful position as independent of circumstances. So we have a choice. And that choice is whether, as Gampopa clearly advises, we give terma jishepa its rightful role and place, or not. If we do, we are our own best friends. If we don't, we are our own worst enemies. We talk a great deal in Vajrayana teachings about very highfalutin things, subtle natural wisdom. And natural wisdom, the natural mind, and so on. Of course, this is a subtle thing. It's not a coarse or gross thing. But we have to remember that when we're talking about that, we are also talking about how to be happy. As long as we lack contentment, happiness will remain out of our reach.
간 진장이 간준 태어나 나가를 속 터박게 세트비나 딩아초 그 남부추데 샘들 정세야 샘조 샘기에 거를 르삼 땅거마 대제리서나 진대왕도 마혀바르 제 속센스나 교나 게다 용 제단 쳇자와니니 요마 교나 유드폴이 가드에는 교나 비르폴이도 대마이나 교나 가드에나 교나 그 조보다보 장아 조본데 제 야보르 외거 내 비르포 외거 내 제린 내 니게 레크미사니 장이 강다 저저걸로 장이니 그 토라 파 잔탑동시간데 디왕데 хор서나 머체들 동하마도 대화를 파자 끼적찍을 쟁죠마 디왕데 가서 그 샘데 다 주람데 람처데 장이니 강다 마혀와레 탑키베네 냠니시 골이 저홀 대 마리니 zonde ngal pointer of the goal 생호 띠고 저 한다와 생호 야동 쳐 Guru Rinpoche ngui so cho sengo ti pongteng o de zidina chora rang ge nyamne sin ti dada de semden der jongwen ti jiwan de ma hyawa de sei ma tamna Guru Rinpoche rang so de pongteng o de zidina ping ma.
To summarize all this, the whole point is we must not be overpowered by circumstances. We must learn to be independent of what happens. Only in that way will we stop blaming externals and accept responsibility for our own state. It was with reference to this that Jamgon Lodro Thaye famously wrote, "The quality of someone's practice is revealed amidst adversity." You can't tell how good a practitioner you are when you're on the cushion in the shrine room. You can tell when things go wrong. We all want to hold on to everything we think we have. We want to preserve our youth. We want to preserve our looks, our beauty, or handsomeness. But the only way to be authentically youthful and authentically beautiful is to be independent of circumstances. If you remain overpowered by circumstances, even while you are technically youthful, you're old. And even though you may be technically beautiful, you're ugly. If you're independent, then regardless of how old you are, you will always be young. And regardless of what you look like, you will always be beautiful and charismatic. People always ask for the pointing out instructions. But as long as you refuse to accept responsibility for your own state, as long as you refuse to acknowledge the need to become independent of circumstances, you could receive the pointing out instructions 100 times from Guru Rinpoche himself, and it wouldn't do you a damn bit of good.
Then our then Sangha Nyamni Sinki Gang, Jopam Yonzon Dorjo God, and Kamba Yonzon Milavi God, take a new God, the son of Temari. Young Sadarga to Tundan and Roche, Wintund and Kamba Dodu, not doing the Nyamni Yapose was a Temari. They carry and so same carry. Chorang Kamba Yabo, the Pamjor Katsu, tell a Hinchamaji. Chorang Zupo Katsi Yabo, tell a Yabo Garu, and tell a Hinchamaji. Tell a Hinja Chana, Paralam take a sequel. Hinchamaji, Chorang Peku see chocolate, nature and dog chocolate. Tell a Hincha said, I in some dancing mayo, I in some dancing mayo. They pinkama, take a problem, tell dancing the dinzenke. Then Sadarga to the wind to the Didina, Chorang Samke Jani Chadam Parma something Koryo the Jew, and Jacking a candle of Pachimba the Tarmatap, Taron Kopanani, the Hincha the J, Hincha the J, Sorwa the Tid don't hurt the young, Chorang Satana Gonzogachani, Chong Kamba Dugdo, Kamba Chung Chong, Nig Dugdo, Didina. Take a pinko mari. They nika de ko Yagana Yanguna send a Kipo, Dromo, Gabo, Doana Yanguna, Donhar Kuma, the Ongan Kamba Zoana Yangon, Kamba Do Tapchana Yango, Konsonga, Guest and the trees on the Ena, Ramya the Timas on Kamba Dogjatis, Batarmi into Madosam, Donhar Kuna, Drakamari. Karendana Yanguna, Gilangi, Dujolirina, Sam Kora. Then it on Namia Yuto, Namia Pe Kipo. Chupa number taba the take of the charcoal, Yang Yaga, you go, the door, and Nanache road to go, the Tundu Gomari. They don't nika the same Sonarwa. Now at Tamji, Hindoki, same Koran, Hindo, Zangi Tamji. They pa, Pachat, it's like Zangmar Zotop. They don't count on the same Ki Langi, Tro Langi. They nika want the Hormas on Waruna. Then it on a sopo chat salary, then he send the Kibo chat salary. That take he called Sanghaganyam Nisari, the take he called.
Somehow people have gotten the idea that to practice the Vajrayana, you need to be poor. You need to become poor. That the Vajrayana requires poverty. That if you have a nice house, you need to give it away. If you have nice stuff, you have to get rid of it, because it's a distraction from your Vajrayana practice. That really, to practice Vajrayana, and I guess they get this from reading the lives of the Siddhas of India or something, but to practice Vajrayana, we really have to live in charnel grounds, and if those aren't available, we need to become homeless and live on the streets. This is incorrect. It's simply not true. It's wrong. The problem, what inhibits our practice is not our stuff. It's not what we possess or how much we possess. It's our minds. The obstacle, the impediment, does not lie in our possessions. It lies within our minds. And even if you tried to do that, let's say you were a little less naive than that, and you decided, okay, I'm not going to become homeless, but I'm going to live in a really horrible little hovel that no one could stand to live in, and I'm going to white knuckle it and grin and bear it and live that way, and that will make my practice flourish. It's not going to do you any good. Because your fixation on your lifestyle is just as deeply entrenched as it was when you lived in a nice house. The problem is the same. The problem is attachment. You could be just as attached to that disgusting little hovel as you were to the mansion you lived in before. And in fact, you'd probably also have the difficulty of social anxiety about people coming over and the bathroom's disgusting, or there's no bathroom at all, or whatever. You know, this is not the solution. It's avoidance. We have to give up our endless avoidance of accepting responsibility for our own states of mind.
All of the theory that they can talk with Chate, Nipa Tondam la Ni, Nyamja the Jitam Ni, Tambo de Nyamja de Sondedan, Guru Rinpoche, Kandison Yando, Sonde Tondam Nangda to Buchunam, Rangjima, the Deming on the Ya, Sontate. That the Hiko Tangas on the young bullet and the Janja, he there the young the Kona, but I'm just on the Cortis on the Lamcher Tadala, Lamcher, Julam, Lamcher, Lamter Chair, Monen Rawada, Sangha Lamter, Tadala, Munze Amtezakin, and need the Mandrote, so Terry, Munze, Nupon Zamba, Tata Hijari, Nupon Zamba, dancing the dancing, Nupoing, Dimbanzing, taking us a problem rindle, not Dimba the dancing, the dancing, Pamjota Dimbanzamba, but the Yin Sam, paying us all a couple of take all the Pahik Lakimatabli. That they take Yalilan trajectory Korva. Konabatam, you travatam to the Terry, taking the court, taking to the Konabaka Sava, Zangi Karisina, drag the ori, tell them Madripa Yomari, Konde Chukon Ronyam Sari. Then the Amtes Hin and Azope, Chapo, Sam Korapa Higmetal, Katsi Gomdina, Tano Donhanyong the Geridarte, they Pahik gold, they kick at Tonda, check the dance, they kick at the Tona Tortari, Sangietari. Then tell a Mambo Keja Travatili Omari. The Hina need the Mondos, Dupale, Tatem Papa Dupanando, Jetar Todan Dipes, Hazizans of a Carpo Chula maybe and tender Jarvis on his or ten Nelo Tontamba, Mayor the number Zoda, Tate Kazan, the so called Chagat Sodona Gutin, and so here is Kondanda is some Sodoki Himbati, Tondam, then Tena Nelo Tontamba, Mayor the number Zok, Jata, now you're the Zok Zipata, Menzipata. Now you're the Dranimbata, Menimbata, Yija Yorto, number of open Kondeg Chukun, Chunam Gunja, Tumor Nawa Zamdi, Mazok Nawa Zam. Then only Dimbanzan Zavani Omari. Sani Chora Sangi and the Nawa Zamdi, Chunam Gun Tumor Nawa Zamdi, Ngunji Tsimata Yantabi, Hirabji Jepa, Gomzon, Kone Hana. Then Rangjung Yeshe Dimba. Tangaso so the Hirap zone, here Korwa, Tade Gomzong Yishikone Hana, then Rangjung Yeshe Demi Namka Zungi Tower, Dimba Meba Namka the Zungi Karwa Tower, Chonana Dawa Karwa Tower, Computer and the May Zo Karwa Tower. Zungi Tower, Jenga, Nesum the Trawa Yambala, Tating us of Himjok has a red salary, so then draw some the Himjok has a gum salad. Money when I saw the Yamyong Jig go holiday. He doing the Semna, Chartably, Hakotably, Tendrick and so go holiday, so then draw some also Zokim Mambo heats a gum salary. And Naga tender here, the thing was a channel Lama Mambo Tin Tower. Tin Sando that day, the Jenga Nesum the Trawa Yambe, Teter Hin. Chongor Trunzen Rangor then Motopangan and Yambar Yapa, Karche, this on Tenda Yambar Yogo, on the Demi, Jumatata, so Tinan de Yapo, the Dubale, Kansin, Dubzin, Duma said, a carport and Nabu Karnag, Chu, Hirap number here in the Durza, Memete, Jikti Tan, Hirap Para Centran Ro, Namka Kana Jungzim and Tetan Ra, so Hipata Lamcher Namje, Pertichava. That data or data of Junto, Tan Rodi Tisam not on and Rogo. That's it.
The second, so those two parts, the main point and the how to actually get it into you, are the two aspects of using relative truth, or the relative truth of appearances to progress in post-meditation with regard to external appearances. The second way to approach appearances is using absolute truth. And there are, again, two parts to this. The first is in meditation, and the second is in post-meditation. So the first of these, in the root text, Guru Rinpoche says, in absolute truth, all things, that is, appearances, sounds, and thoughts, are non-existent, or do not exist of their own nature. They are unreal. So rest in their unreality. This is, of course, a topic that has come up again and again in this text, starting with the very first part with the Mahayana examination of the nature of reality, and continuing in the presentation of various aspects of Vajrayana meditation. Here, the first point is that whatever else we do to bring daily life onto the path, whatever else we do as post-meditation practice, whatever other techniques we may employ, such as taking and sending and so on, won't work as long as we continue to cling to the reality of appearances. It won't work as long as we continue to solidify our experiences. In the Papadupa Sutra, it says, like eating fine food that has been mixed with poison, to fixate even on virtuous dharmas has been taught by the victor to be just like that. So any other technique we may practice that contains fixation on reality, solidification of experiences, is like poisoned food. At best, it won't work. So therefore, we need to familiarize ourselves with the way things are, the way things really are, which is what we call absolute truth. And the way things really are is that all the forms we see with our eyes, the objects of our vision, and all the sounds we hear with our ears, and all the things we think of our ideas of things such as samsara, nirvana, our concepts of all things, and so on. So in short, everything we see, everything we hear, and everything we think is only a mere appearance. There is no need, and it is in fact incorrect to do this, there is no need to impose or impute a concept of reality on any of these things. Seeing something is just seeing something. Reality doesn't come into it. Hearing something is just hearing something. That's all it is. It's just an experience. Thinking something is just thinking something. Don't believe what you think. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. Because you already know that you're bewildered. You know you're bewildered because you're suffering. If you're not suffering at all, then we're not talking to you. And go sit over there. But if you're suffering, that proves one thing. You're bewildered. And if you're bewildered, then you know that what you see, what you hear, and what you think are just mere appearances, mere experiences. Now you can approach this in two ways. Jamgon Lodro Thaye says, you can approach this through logical analysis. If you're given to the sutra approach, you can use a combination of direct valid cognition and inferential valid cognition combined with the logical reasoning to prove to yourself that what you see isn't real, that what you hear isn't real, and that what you think isn't real. The other way to do it is if you are used to the practice of meditation, really, then a wisdom will arise within you that will demonstrate this to you. You don't need to prove it to yourself logically. But either way, we need to come to the decisive recognition that none of these things, sights, sounds, or thoughts, have ever truly existed. They have never been real. The whole concept of reality is a fiction. It's an invention of bewilderment. They're like a reflection of the sky in a mirror. Or like an image, Lama said, in a computer screen. Mere appearance. Being mere appearance does not negate the appearance. But mere, that's all it is. In short, as those of you who are engaged in the Dzogchen training will know, all of these things are without origin, location, or destination. For something to be real, it has to come into existence. It has to remain in existence for however long, and then it has to pass out of existence. Because those are some of the attributes we ascribe to this concept, this fictional or fictitious concept, reality. So once you have recognized, decisively recognized, that all things are like that, then in meditation, you simply look at that which fixates on them as real. Don't look at the phenomenon. Look at what mistakes it through bewilderment to be real. And that is how to rest in non-conceptual wisdom. About this, the same sutra that was quoted above says, when the ideas of composite and not composite, of good or virtuous things and unvirtuous things, are broken down by your discernment to the point where you recognize that not so much as an atom of any of them exists, then you join the ranks of those in the world who have cultivated the perfection of knowledge. It's like the way in which space does not depend upon anything. Space doesn't require a container. Space doesn't require something to hold it up. So this is actually the greatest of all ways to bring appearances on the path. And it's also indispensable for the practice of any of the other ways. In a shagri. So we'll stop there for lunch.
I think it's better only 5 minutes we have left over. Sonam deye damje zebanye domne nyembe jana bamze jega namje balan roba ye seben zolen roba Sona ye le zawe damba gani doba yo zanjo zemne rumbo je ma je bana ji je ba nyamba me ba da gone gonda ba wa yo zemje damje de da de jor Nindro tamje tada dombar yo sanjo samba kanda saryo teda kanje molan yo sanje rejen zenze tambe ga jargan de yadanda lemba sabje mezo
Last one? Is food downstairs? Does someone know? Is lunch downstairs?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Last.
Yeah, okay.